go off when they go down.
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam A.K. Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Today, we're talking about some pretty alarming stories that are coming out, and of course, today is actually going to be a pretty quick show. We have taken all of the main news and squashed it down to the most important events of the last 36 to 72 hours. So again, it is Monday the 3rd, and there is a lot popping off. Of course, cybersecurity experts sound alarm over U.S. power grid vulnerabilities. Now, as far as the power grid, we've talked about this a ton. And of course, we have Foogle fam that actually work on the grid. We have Foogle fam that are all over the country that have said and made comments about how bad it actually is. Our infrastructure is extremely old and outdated. In some areas, it's basically ancient. And of course, now they are finally doing some upkeep, but they're not per se putting a basement under the house before they build it. You'll see what I mean. Of course, it says that the White House announced efforts last week to upgrade the country's aging energy infrastructure in a move to reduce power outages and make improvements to the grid amid soaring demand. But threats from nefarious forces continue to pose a security risk, experts say. The initiative between the federal government and 21 states was formed to make fixes and improvements to outdated infrastructure to reduce outages and several recent severe weather events. The states joining the effort, of course, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Washington, and Wisconsin, which has some things in common there. But of course, the announcement came the same day as hundreds of thousands of people lost power in Texas as intense storms with destructive winds moved through the area. Now, of course, we have seen over the last 5 years some of the craziest areas not only have power outs, but power cuts. California had all of the fires, and they ended up cutting power for as long as 8 days in some areas to conserve the power. There were people that basically have an agreement with their power company that, you don't expect it for them to tell you, hey, by the way, we're just shutting you off. We're going to shut you off for an amount of days, and basically there's no way around it. That's pretty insane when you really think about it. We're in this modern day civilization with AI and technology, and they're potentially going to the moon and to Mars, but yet they can't figure out our simple power system, right? Well, this is a good way to put it. Essentially, Morgan Wright, a cybersecurity expert and chief security advisor at SentinelOne, said cybersecurity measures need to be one of the pillars of modernization efforts that are built around. It says, go back to the start of the Ukraine and Russia conflict. One of the first things Russia went after right away was power. Wright told Fox News Digital, adding Moscow went after power plants and backup plants in its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It says, quote, my concern is if we build this and we're not putting the necessary building blocks in place, we're going to leave a gaping hole. It's like building a house and then saying, hey, we should have put a basement under it. Essentially, they are doing they're doing small fixes and these kind of updates, but they're doing it with no cybersecurity, no EMP resilience kind of things in that purview. Now, they might be secretly doing this a lot. Of course, there are executive orders done by the former president, which are, in fact, one of the few executive orders that the current president didn't immediately unsign on his first day in office. That executive order is still there, but essentially it has not been enforced, and it's been at a snail's pace. This is kind of crazy considering we are at the cusp of a world war. You have, of course, many, many countries that are all teaming up, trying to make their own currency, that they're all trying to take their neighbor. They're all in a proxy conflict with the U.S., and they're all threatening EMP or some sort of huge, massive threat against the United States. Again, this is absolutely nuts for them to say that they're going to do these little fixes, but not to address the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about it tonight, along with many of the other current events happening right now. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
This won't be a love song when the lights go out. Items do bother. When they go off, when they go off, when they go down. Extra food in the water. This won't be a love song when the lights go out. Items do bother. When they go off, when they go off, when they go.
Hey, nice to see you, Tracy Q, Louis Trampasha. It looks like we have Rip Curl in the house. Thank you for modding, Rip. It's nice to see you again. Hopefully, it's doing well down south in Oregon there. Saved by Grace, Monkey Inside Me, Lynn Mode, or Moad, I should say. Let's see here. So why did JB just close down the border? I don't again, we're going to cover all sorts of crazy stuff today. Lord Andrew, Mimi Carstill, Smokin' Swamp Outdoors, Trusted Source, Truth Iris, T-Rose, Cats Don't Care from Texas. Nice to see you. We've, of course, got some folks from Florida. I see Ohio people here already. I see, of course, we've got people from the UK, from Australia, from Brazil, a couple of people from Brazil. Foogle fam, James Floyd, thank you from Texas, Fort Worth, of course, LAPD SWAT. We have Georgia, that is awesome. Arizona in the house, Sean C., Steph Fran, and everybody else. Thank you so much, and thank you for making it tonight. Again, it's going to be a quicker show because we made sure to cut all of the fluff out. So let's get right into it. Let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just non-fluffy fine.
So first of all, the whole cyber thing, you're going to see people are going to panic only when MSM tells them to panic. This is something that time and time again on a regional level, we have seen almost every state have a huge issue with this. Every state has had some sort of big storm. If you are in a state that has not had a storm in the last 5 years that has knocked out your power, I would love to know where you live because I'm sure many people would love to move there. But here in Washington, we've had several big ones, and we don't have tornadoes. We don't have hurricanes here. We're on the West Coast. We don't have sort of that kind of stuff. But we do have rain, floods. We have earthquakes occasionally. We have our own disasters, right? But as far as the storms, we have even had several storms where we've lost power. I've lost power for a few days. Down in California, lost it for 8 days. In Texas, you had not one, but two massive disasters. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. There's probably 4 or 5 huge, massive disasters in Texas. Florida and the whole East Coast has had their hurricanes. It's like no matter where you live, there's going to be a disaster. So keep in mind when we talk about SHTF or prepping or anything, this is news from a prepper standpoint. And prepping is good for all of those regional events, whether it be your power goes off for 1 day or for 1 year. It's the same thing. If you prepare for the worst, you'll be totally fine through a smaller disaster where normal people are just absolutely freaking out. When people hear that a storm is coming, they absolutely go nuts. A lot of regional events where the MSM talks up a storm, most of the time when they talk it up, it's nothing. And then half the time when they don't hype it, nothing is said. All of a sudden, we have a Category 5 and dams broken and all hell breaks loose. But as far as when they do hype it up, half the time nothing happens. But as far as the people that do prepare, they're so much better off than the people that don't. So keep in mind that that's the perspective that we're coming from. Now, the cybersecurity issues, it's crazy that they're not addressing some of these things. And again, we don't know what they're doing in secret, but it almost seems like it is on purpose. That's how some people are taking it. It's very alarming to think of any of these events happening. But if you've been following all of the events, not just in one area or the other, we're talking about the United States, all of the changes that are happening, all of the obvious changes that are happening here, that we actually hear and see those changes being talked about at the highest levels in these group meetings of these groups that are basically making decisions for the entire planet. We see the same thing happening across the world. We see people divided. Doesn't matter what language they speak. They could be speaking French, Brazilian Portuguese, or they could be speaking Swahili, and they are divided into political caste systems. It's absolutely nuts. But as far as it doesn't matter where you are in the world, this probably applies to you. As far as cybersecurity decks, I like the analogy. It's like building a house and then saying, oh, yeah, we should build a basement underneath. Obviously, that's not exactly how it works, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they should, if they're going to do all this investment right now, they should really think about what are they going to do from this point of view. And I totally agree. But look, here's the one thing about cyber. When we look at all of the cyber attacks that have happened, while they have, and there's a lot that have happened that we don't know about, we just assume they potentially could have been cyber attacks, whether it be outages with air traffic control areas or outages with airline systems where they weren't able to operate for a while, or we've seen outages with telecom companies where the entire cellular network goes down. That kind of stuff happens, but when you see it happen, it's not it's destructive to the company at the moment in time, but usually they're able to recover. So there's an outage, but it doesn't last that long. And a cyber attack on our grid, the real question is it going to be like that? Is it going to be, if they go after it and they do it for a military purpose because they're doing something at the time, will it be short-lived? In other words, is something that's going to happen and maybe within a day or even hours or weeks or a couple of days, will it come right back up because they'll be able to figure it out versus a destructive event like an EMP or like a physical destruction of sites where, it then requires, time and effort and rebuilding. So, but it is an issue. The grid itself is an issue on multiple different layers.
And if you are newer to our channel, we have talked about this many times before. What was it? There's two different groups. There's the NERC report, and then there's two that sound almost exactly the same. What's even crazier is that the power, the people that are in charge of power, essentially somehow through some weird puppet strings being pulled, they're in charge of monitoring themselves, essentially. Like it's like they're the oversight is themselves. They're the oversight committee on themselves. So a lot of things get hidden. We covered stories a couple years ago when it came out that it was over 700 attacks on our grid, and out of the 700, there were at that time just two. And one of those events happened at that time. Two events that were publicly put out through media. The rest went to and reported to the Department of Energy and then disappeared. It went into the NERC report, I believe, but then it stayed there. Nobody knew about it until years later. That's crazy because they actually broke it down into segments, whether it was somebody taking a pot shot at it, driving through the fence, putting off a homemade boom boom on the fence, sniping it. It doesn't matter what it was. They broke it down into these different categories, and there were tons of each. And then cyber events, right? Well, with these, it's like we know that these events are happening. Half the time they cover it up because it has something to do with a large corporation. The large corporation doesn't want their stock to drop. They don't want people to panic, and they don't want people to know that they failed in protecting the asset or whatever people are invested in. A lot of the times when you see some stupid excuse like, oh, it was just an update, and that's why all of AT&T went down for 12 hours and people couldn't do anything, couldn't call 911, all of this. You see that when it's a massive corporation. Oh yeah, it was a mistake during updates. Like, come on, people don't believe this stuff anymore. But again, they can still say it, and as long as they just keep saying it, and as long as checkers are on their side, it goes down in history as that's what happened. But we all know, and we all have intuition, we all have common sense that a lot of these are hacks. The pharmacies going down, we talked about that a couple months ago. 30,000 pharmacies went down. Hospitals went down. All these things went down. That one, they actually admitted that was a hack. The airports, the pipelines, all of these things. We are dependent on our computers now. And 100 years ago, it was a lot different. There was a lot of people that knew what to do. They were self-sufficient. They knew how to actually do things. They knew how to grow food. They knew how to catch food and hunt food in a lot of cases, or at least they knew how to take care of themselves. Today, we are dependent on a system of just basically driving down the street and buying it and picking it up and taking it home. That's the extent of hunter and gathering for most people. But now there is a huge risk to our whole system. And could it be a part of a bigger, massive plan? We don't know. But again, we do know that they are not really paying attention to this. Through that whole NERC report, we found out all of these things were happening. Of course, a lot of it is not being reported. So it's really, really, really scary to think that it almost looks like they're on purpose. They're waiting until it breaks to fix it. And then China is pre-positioning for future cyber attacks, and the new NSA chief is worried. So we have probably gone over a list of about almost a dozen different people that are currently in charge, that are currently in office or in their positions or in charge of a 3-letter agency, a 4-letter agency, a 7-letter agency, every letter agency. And this one is no different. Now there is a new gentleman who is saying that we should be paying attention. As the U.S. military's new cyber chief and the head of the nation's main electronic spy agency, it is General Timothy Howe's job to be concerned about China's clandestine efforts to steal sensitive American data and weapons know-how. But he is also contending with an unusual Chinese threat, one that is designed not to extract military secrets or data of any kind, but to lurk in the infrastructure that undergirds civilian life, as if lying in wait for the right moment to unleash chaos. Now, whether you believe it or not, we have heard this several times, the lying in wait, or that they're waiting for the right moment to strike. At the current time right now, I don't know how many ships are still surrounding Taiwan, or how again, we get somewhat regular updates of what is happening there. But essentially, China is going to try to take a swipe at Taiwan. Many people think that it is as important as it is to where if they do that, they are going to coordinate with all of their other adversary allies, and they are going to try to do something massive to take that. Some believe, including myself, believe that if something like that were to go down, they would attack the U.S., and by they, I mean a lot of our adversaries would team up. They would coordinate something like Leave the World Behind, only we've been talking about it for years before that movie, where they would coordinate on something that caused massive chaos inside the U.S. They would already have people in place. This is a hypothetical. They would have people in place, and of course we would lose power grid, communications. We would lose all these things all at the same time. Meanwhile, our military is spread out through all of these different countries that we are actually spirited to defend. So we have North Korea, South Korea, Russia, and Ukraine. We have Israel and Iran. You have, of course, China and Taiwan, China and Philippines. You, of course, have Venezuela and Guyana. Not to mention there's a few outliers that have their own crazy things going on within their government. Obviously, you have the Nigers and others that are picking sides right now saying, we're with Russia. You have other countries that are like, you know what, BRICS looks really good, we're going to switch. These are threats to the U.S., whether whoever is running it, depending on, what the end-all goal is, it almost seems like we are about to be thrown under a bus. That's what it seems like. What does it seem like to you? Dex, as far as pre-positioning, we just keep hearing this, and I'm hoping, I guess everybody's praying that this is just, blotter.
It's a lot harder to find, right? I mean, think about it. If you're trying to find someone that is stealing stuff out of your business repeatedly, well, that's easy because they're performing an action, and you can start to monitor the action, and you'll see them coming and going in the middle of the night or during the day, loading their pockets up, or doing bank transactions or whatever it is, right? But in this case, what they're doing is they're making themselves invisible, and they're just sitting dormant. So you don't know where they are. You don't know what they're doing. It's hard to find them. There's no activity. And there's not even, a heat sink or anything that you can sort of look for, a heat signature, to find them in your office there. They're literally just sitting there waiting. Or if they do infiltrate and they get in, that's about the only action you're going to see. And once they get in, they go dormant and they just wait. They're waiting to pop out at the right time. Makes it very difficult to find.
Now, I want to point out, I want to go back to this previous map of the U.S. here. If this is another thing that we found out over the last couple of years. If you think about the grid, and it is called the grid because they are all connected, the entire United States, just 9 locations, and this is not something that the bad guys already know this. Every time I say this, they go, "Oh, you're telling the bad guy." All the bad guys know this. All of the other countries know this. They probably know which ones at this point. But just 9 locations across the United States is what they found, that they would have to hit 9 locations to knock down all of our power grid. And that could be physical attacks. That wouldn't even have to be an EMP. That could be as simple as a sniper to the right place of the right transformer. So that is absolutely crazy, and that is why they should be talking more about fixing our ancient infrastructure and our grid. But they're not. They're doing things for certain states that almost every state has agreed that it's almost like a ploy for the local gov to be like, hey, we're really doing stuff here, drop the ballot for me and, on this day. So it's crazy that just 9 locations. At max, they said 21 locations when there's thousands and thousands. 9 to 21, 9 being the minimum, 21 being they would for sure knock it down to knock down our entire grid. And if they do that, if they permanently damage any of these transformers, they are not made here. They're made overseas. They're made custom. They're as big as a building, and they can take 9 to 18 months to build and ship. And some say upwards of over 2 years. And that is assuming that our supply chain works. Not to mention, add this to it. You actually have with the whole 9 months to 2 years and everything else. Not to mention, with all of these that happen, just assume our supply chain is running and everything else. You knock these down. You would also have to have the timing right, and everything would have to be working. But you would also have to have the countries in place. Oh, and then the access. So Solar Winds actually accessed Black Start. Our plan, if this ever went down, if our grid went down, then there is a plan in place. It is called Black Start. It is the plan for day one, right after the grid gets knocked down. They hit 9 locations. They knock our grid down. It is our step-by-step process on how we would turn it back on. You can go look at this yourself. This is confirmed. In Black Start, they went in, or in Solar Winds, they went into Black Start specifically and accessed this. This was 1.5 years, 2 years before they're saying that they're in every bit of our infrastructure, that they're waiting for the right time to strike, that they're basically have backdoors and everything straight out of Dragon Day. Before this, they have accessed the plan, the step-by-step for us to put it back together. So all they would have to do is to go to each one of those steps and sabotage it, and then we would be screwed anyways. So if we need to make 9 new transformers, they would go to the place that makes those transformers, or the 3 places. They would hit those locations. If we need to move it with this logistics systems, and they've worked out which logistical trucks and trains and everything else, they would hit those paths, and they would make sure to take those out as well. It wouldn't be hard to do, especially if you already have people on the inside. That brings you to, well, how would they get people on the inside? Well, what do you mean? We all know that there's sleeper cells all around the country, and people have been talking about it for over 1 year now, or 2 years, that there are people, military-age men, coming in the droves, and none of them have a backstory or a family with them or anything. And they were doing background checks at their court date. We just found that out too. So basically they got in, they got a court date, and they're like, whatever, go ahead. Move around until your court date. And that's when they did the background check, or at least that's what we were told. So, I mean, that's insane. But that is what is supposedly happening right now. Dex, let's go over U.S., Japan, and Korea commit to new multi-domain Freedom Edge exercise.
Certainly, the U.S., Japan, and South Korea announced on Sunday that they will conduct the first iteration of a trilateral multi-domain exercise called Freedom Edge, and they're doing it this summer. This is coming out of the trilateral ministerial meeting that was between like the Secretary of Defense for the U.S., the Ministry of Defense for Japan, so that's Defense Lloyd Austin, that's Minru Kihara from Japan, as well as the Minister of National Defense from South Korea, which was Shin Sik. I believe I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm sure. But they had this big meeting, a big trilateral meeting, and they're coming out of, and this is all from, part of the meeting that happened back at Camp David, if you remember that, back in August 2023. So that was sort of the start of this trilateral grouping of Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. But coming out of that, they've then had this meeting just recently, and coming from that, they're starting Freedom Edge, and they're starting it this summer. They reaffirmed that a trilateral exercise will be executed in a systemic manner in accordance with the multi-year trilateral exercise plan established last year. So they're going to do this every year, but it's something new. They also, I think, are doing specific things to deter nuclear deterrence and missile threats from North Korea as part of this, and achieve complete denuclearization of North Korea at some point. That's the overall goal, I guess. But ultimately, the drills are related to North Korea, as the portion of it is related to supporting South Korea. And then I got to believe that the other portion of this drill, it has everything to do with the Pacific, as it relates to Japan, is also about what are they doing related to the aggressive behavior of the PRC, or of China and Xi. So, look, we've talked about the escalations going on in the Pacific, both the North Pacific around with Kim, and the South Pacific with the Philippines, and of course, obviously, China really just wanting to get Taiwan. And this is all part of that ramp up. And this is just one more layer that's taking us right into the face of the storm.
Yeah, they called it the Asian NATO, and this trilateral, as far as the drills that happen, we always point out that drills can turn into the real thing, as far as you have almost every military in the world positioned all around the world. You have all of these different wars, regional wars that are happening. And then, of course, you have the U.S. connected to one side or the other. And then Russia, China, Iran, and all of the rest attached to the other side. China's currently helping out North Korea and Russia. They're directly shipping through things right through them. And then, of course, Putin and Xi are meeting in person. They're coming up with plans. I don't see how this could go any other way, especially with the big goals that the groups in charge of the world are saying that they have in place for us. The quick changes, if you look just over the last 6 or 7 years, how much has changed in such a short amount of time. If they want to change even what they are saying that they're going to change in the next 6 years, then something massive has to happen. Because if you think that the change in the last 5 years, 6 years culturally is big, just wait until it affects your daily life, like how much you travel, how much you eat, how much food you consume, what your footprint is. These kind of things are all getting put into place, supposedly in a very, very short time span. Money and how we spend it, how it's tracked, how it's monitored, how it is required to do certain things with it. I mean, how we travel. All of these things are going to change. They already have laws in place and bills for next year for cars and this whole changeover to electric. Yet we don't even have a great grid right now. Like, they're just starting to fix a few states up, and we have an ancient electric grid. But yet we're all going to be switching to electric vehicles that are going to depend on this said vulnerable grid. This is insanity. It's like the definition of it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. KT Cleans a Lot. Thank you. Says, great show as always on Is This Really Happening? Thank you for the super thanks on the last show. I've been catching the replays for the past month or so, but hope to be back soon watching live. I've missed all my Foogle fam friends. Hope you all been doing well. And then Linda Rossmeyer, thank you. And KT Cleans a Lot. We hope to see you soon. If you are watching the replay, hey, nice to see you guys, and thank you for commenting. Sweatin' Ministries, thank you. Angelicit, Trilicit, thank you guys for your support yesterday. Parker Craft, Friday. Nevitz, and thank you, Nevitz. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Jillian Mason. Meet Bubba 007, Lord McCormick, and of course, Kimbria, Chance, Paladin. Thank you for modding over on DLive. Mersa1, thank you for hitting a badge anniversary, I guess you would call it. Comet Moon, Wanna Be, and of course, all of the rest. Thank you guys. And let's see here. Starin, thank you for subscribing. All right, and then back to the map. Before we move on, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. As far as all of the events that we've talked about, there's about 4 different things that we really, really recommend, and we've been recommending for years. EMP Shield is one of them. We keep the same affiliates. These are all items that we truly believe will either save your life, make your life more comfortable during a disaster, or make a disaster easier to get through. EMP Shield, I think, would definitely save lives in the chance that if we have either an EMP or a Carrington-level event from the sun, this device, when put in your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, generator, gas, or solar, in the case of the Flex 1500 or Flex Tactile, or in your home, can protect all of your plugged-in instruments and appliances. This would actually ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before an EMP or a Carrington-level event from the sun or a CME can fry your device to keep you going. So if you need to get home, if you work 30 miles from work, if you work 30 miles from home and you have to get home to bug in, or you need to get out to bug out, this is very, very, very useful. It's something that you won't need until you need it. Go to marfuglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. Not only will you save $50 off per device, but you'll help our independent channel. We are up against behemoths. We are, of course, up against MSM, which they have obviously done deals to be at the very top 50 pages. And, you know, we're buried. So if you guys can help us more than anything, not only protect yourself, but maybe share us out if you can. If you like our show and you see the value and the work we put into it, just share us out with somebody new. Or if you're not subscribed, or if you need to resubscribe because you're unsubscribed, hit that button. The bigger that number gets, it doesn't matter as far as sub counts. You guys know I don't call people subs. I hear creators say subs or subscribers. I do think it does help with getting guests on. I know it does. So it very much helpful because sometimes you don't even talk to the guest itself. You have to go through their gatekeeper, and their gatekeeper won't even let you talk to people. So if you can help us out, our goal is 1 million. Hopefully by 2030, we'll hit that if we're still on here. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. And of course, subscribe. And then China maintains a stance on disputed Gulf islands despite Iran's anger. So it's like they pretend they're, angry at each other. China held its stance on 3 disputed islands in the Persian Gulf on Monday, despite Tehran's anger at Beijing for describing the Iran-controlled islands as a matter to be resolved with the UAE or United Arab Emirates. In a statement last week, China expressed support for the efforts of the UAE to reach a, quote, peaceful solution to the issue of the islands, the Greater Tunbi, the Lesser Tunbi, and Abu Musa. The islands claimed by the UAE and Iran have held by Tehran since 1971. In a rare show of anger towards its biggest trading partner, the Iranian Foreign Ministry on Sunday summoned the Chinese ambassador to Iran to protest China's repeated support for the UAE's basic claims. Now, just a different angle here. I think these guys are close friends here. I don't think that they're actually at odds with each other. I think that China's got bigger things on its plate. What if they're bringing people from country to country? They say, oh, it's to yell at them, but really it's to bring a message over or to talk in person. Considering the strategic cooperation between Tehran and Beijing, it is expected that the Chinese government will revise its stance on this matter. So it was worth bringing the actual Chinese ambassador. And it says Chinese Foreign Ministry on Monday repeated its call for Iran and the UAE to resolve their differences through dialogue and consultation, describing China's stance on the matter consistent. So they show publicly they're, we don't like you. But I guess we'll see, and we'll update on what ends up happening with it. And then Philippine troops on disputed reef pointed weapons at Coast Guard's China report says. Dex, now they're saying that Philippines are the aggressors.
Oh, yeah. And so coming out of, I guess it was South China Morning Post or one of the Chinese distributions. But yeah, they said at least 2 troops stationed on a grounded Philippine warship on the disputed reef in the South China Sea pointed weapons at the Chinese Coast Guard patrol last month, according to the state broadcaster CCTV. So, and then they also put a post on their social media account on Sunday that said the incident took place near the Second Thomas Shoal, which obviously is where we've been talking about all these confrontations with the water cannons and the boats running into each other, or the laying of the lines in the water so they don't cross certain areas. So, but you know, this, I guess what really matters here is we've gone from, you know, rhetoric to, you know, floating buoys in the water to water cannons and even potentially destructive water cannons because they've broken some glass before, to now literal pointing of kinetic weapons at one another. And we said this, we've called this all along. We said, just watch as we progress through this, it's going to ramp up. Ships collided together there. They've rammed each other. So we're at the point now, it sounds like, where they're pointing kinetic weapons at one another. And it won't surprise me if we don't hear maybe, you know, a shot across the bow or something like that to warn off a ship or to tell one ship to go away, as opposed to a water cannon. And that's just going to bring us closer and closer to that point of when they really actually have a strike from one ship to another. And then the U.S. is forced to defend because we have a treaty with them, and we said we would. We will be forced to defend immediately in like kind, right back against, support Philippines, right back against China. So that's, you know, the writing's on the wall.
So if you watch our show or some of our other peers, it's like once you start seeing the patterns, this is just anybody that's been here for a very long time, you almost might not need us at one point because you start seeing the pattern for yourself. You can see it being rolled, and the news and everybody will tell you this isn't going to happen, but you know what's going to be rolled out next. You know what the next step is. You know it's going to get hotter one little step at a time. It seems like everything takes baby steps. And people are so into instant gratification and impatient. It's almost like people want this thing to go down. I don't want a world war. I don't want these things to happen. I mean, if we get a legit world war, we're not going to be online. We're not going to be dealing with all of this. We're going to be dealing with, you know, candles and getting out or bugging out or doing something, trying to survive. That is not going to be fun for anybody. Doesn't matter how prepared you are, even if you've got some sort of silo bunker. I'm sorry. After a year in a bunker, no matter how nice it is, you're going to feel like you're in a bunker. Okay. So whether you're in a $270 million mansion like Zuckerberg or Sam Altman, it's not going to matter. No matter how many niceties you have, it's going to be crappy. Now, as far as when you see what these things are going, every step of the way can be called. Next, they're going to start getting in these little hot conflicts. And this lines up with every other country: North Korea, South Korea, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, and Israel. Iran and Israel, that one might, for some reason, I almost think that maybe something will happen right before in the next couple months, and that one will be solved, and all the credit will go to a certain person. Like maybe that's being done or something. I don't know. But one thing I do know is all of these other countries, they're splitting up the U.S. military at the same time as chopping it down, depleting our resources, depleting all of our stocks. We're sending all of our stocks and our warehoused weapons over to other countries. And then we left $700 million worth of Humvees and weapons and gears and Black Hawk helicopters. We just left it in the Middle East when we left Afghanistan. It's like we are somebody that is not on our side is inside our country going, yeah, what can we do to get rid of more and more and more and more? And what can we do to destroy this or to bring this down or to bring the prices higher, to make all this go? Oh, what fire do we have to start here? That's what it feels like. How do you guys see it? Let me know in the comments down below. Be respectful, of course, if you can. If you like our show, then try to keep it around. But yeah, the Philippines, it's like most people don't understand that the Philippines is going to be a bigger part of it too. It could very well be the trigger point. Any one of these spots could be where something pops off. It could be the next Fantastic Freddy event. And then the Kremlin warns Washington of fatal miscalculation to let Kiev use U.S. supplied weapons inside of Russia. So we've talked about this for the last week and a half. Obviously, Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO commander, or the head of NATO, made comments and said, hey, we need to stop restricting Kiev and Zelensky of using the weapons that we're giving them. We need to let them fire wherever they want. If they want to fire at the Kremlin, then let them do it. We're giving them all these restrictions, but they can't defend themselves. They can't, self-defense. They can't defend themselves if they can't fire inside of Russia, and we have all these restrictions. Other countries slowly, and we predicted this. It was very easy to see once you saw the first country, the second country, the third country. Oh, well, we actually think that, yeah, we agree with that. We knew, 100%, all of you did too, that meant that it was all of a sudden everybody was going to drop their restrictions. Everything that they have said pre-hand ends up happening. Anything regarding UKR, it has happened. They want more tanks, they get more tanks. They want more RPGs, they get more RPGs. They want jets, they get jets. They want patriots, they get patriots. They want money, they get money in the form of helicopters full of cash, I'm sure. But as far as this goes, this is a big deal. They've already struck 2 early warning defense systems for nukes in Russia. That is their ability to protect themselves from a nuclear missile. There is no mutually assured destruction, and Russia will end up doing something really, really crazy if they try to go after those radar systems, because that is the only thing that has kept them a superpower other than their massive military. They can have a massive military, but without those nukes, somebody else would have bested them by now. So this is like the threats coming from them. Everybody says Russia is crying wolf. Just remember that the boy got ate by the wolf at one point. That was Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov on Monday warned the U.S. against the potential fatal consequences of allowing Kiev to deploy U.S.-supplied weapons against targets inside of Russia. I would like to warn American leaders against miscalculations that could have fatal consequences. For some unknown reason, they have underestimated the seriousness of the rebuff they may receive. So think of that, even if it's not a nuke or a tactical nuke on our shores. All of these countries are connected. All of them have their cyber teams. We're talking about cyber events that are most likely. They don't directly take life, but they can cause absolute chaos. That's what I think a rebuff from them would be. And who knows? Maybe, of course, the government knows half the time when there's these kind of attacks, but they don't tell the public. Something that's massive, something gets knocked down, and they say it's another update, right? Or something that causes massive chaos or damage to our entire economy, something like that. We are already dealing with crazy inflation, every other kind of, financial trouble, infrastructure trouble, food trouble, supply chain trouble with tribbles. We're basically having all of the different kinds of trouble. Dex, as far as like Russia, they say something every day. So people are completely desensitized to it. But now are they stronger now that they're teamed up with China and Iran and Niger and every other country you can imagine that's on our bad side or on our bad list, they're friends with now.
You know, another way to look at this, or another way I sort of flip this around, is every single red line they have put out there, the West has crossed. It's almost as if somebody wants to start World War III. It's almost as if somebody really wants the conflict to start. They just don't want to actually pull the first or push the first button, so to speak. And when you look at every action we have taken, and I say collectively, like NATO, the West, anybody that's supporting UKR, we have taken as these countries, it's everything you could possibly imagine they have done. And anything that you think they shouldn't do, all of a sudden, guess what? They're going to do that next. And it's like, well, at what point are they going to poke the bear and the bear strikes back? And I think they're trying to. It almost feels like they're saying, how much can we possibly do? We just need him to start the darn war. Why won't he start it? And this is opinion on my side, so please, it's not coming out as fact, but that's just what it looks like or feels like. It's like we're just poking because we're not willing to start it, but we really want it. And that's that, every little action that keeps happening, whether it be the rhetoric, whether it be we're going to put people, on the front lines, whether it be, we're going to send F-16s, we're going to cross this line, we're going to cross that line. We've done every single one of them. And every time they say don't do something, what do? We do it.
Dr. Papadopoulos says World War III already started, broski. Yeah, I agree with you, and there's different stages of a world war, and when we look back at the past two, we physically got into the hot war after an event directly happened to us. It was almost like it was all support based. Like we couldn't get public support for us sending our men and women over there until we saw a horrible event like Pearl Harbor. Same thing with World War I. I mean, same with the Gulf of Tonkin. There's all these events where it's like you also win the public's support too. It's a lot easier when the public is demanding you to do something instead of demanding you stop. I think people underestimate how powerful the people are and how they do need or want us to be behind them on these kind of things. They want us to be demanding the agendas that end up screwing us in the end. They want us to take a pop shot at our own foot. It makes a whole lot easier if you have everybody cheering it on. You have a lot more momentum. Just in general, they want you to be demanding it. They're striking inside of Russia now. This is a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, people would be freaking out right now. But now people are desensitized to it. I think about when like Russia is doing all of these crazy things. They're making these bunker buster bombs, some of the biggest traditional bombs ever. They're, I don't know if they're purposely leaking it out, but the plans of Noah's Ark, they're talking about 1,500-pound nuclear or 1,500-foot wave nuclear tsunami nukes and like all these things, and they've got plans called Noah's Ark to evacuate all their leadership. It's like, are they actually preparing for a potential, back and forth where every single city is knocked out? Probably not, but it is definitely on the back of all of our minds, especially right now. They have crossed every red line that they have set. And there's smaller red lines that are in their actual laws, their decree of how they could use a nuke. That has actual lists of things. Like if you take out more than 3 of our larger Navy ships, if you take out so many airfields, we've done that. If you go after our early warning radar systems, that's been done. Like Dex said, Dex, I don't know if I think in a month or two, we should go through everything in that decree. I think we've done.
Yeah, we went at. Remember, they went after the nuke boom planes that were on the tarmac. They started hitting those. They went after the oil refineries. They hit the deep into Moscow. I mean, come on, they've done a lot, and they've taken out train stations or big bridges with train rail yards,
pipelines
near Siberia. They've hit pipelines. I mean, what more could you possibly do to this country and not expect them to retaliate? Yet they haven't. They've just stayed in the one conflict they've done. And it just feels like all we're doing is saying, come on, man, just come on, throw the first punch. I'm ready. We're ready. Just throw it. It's like that guy who's just egging you on at the bar.
FYI, like this isn't we're not like pro Vlad here. But you have to see, there's the fact of the matter is we've done everything on their decree. Dex, I don't know if we can find that decree, but that's a list on paper in their own laws that they can strike back to those events. And if any one of those things happen, they say legally They've put this out to the world, says, hey, world, this is our decree. If you do this to us, we will tactically nuke you or nuke you. That list, almost everything, it's like they're going down and checking a box. I guess, what would be the positive side out if we do just knock Russia off the map or take over and take Vladimir out? What would that would it be for? What are your theories on that?
Well, the here's the other thing though. To the extent that they're saying don't do this and we do it, on one hand, we're showing, like, hey, we're not scared of you. We're going to do whatever you tell us not to do. So, if for as much as, I have said on one side, oh, we're poking the bear, which we certainly are. But at the same time, we've only told ourselves for the last 65 plus years, this is the biggest adversary that we should be worried about. The strongest army, the biggest nuke force, the biggest, all sorts of reasons why we should never go to conflict with them. So, but yeah, you're right. That line is getting closer and closer. Everything from, is it going to be Putin next? Is it going to be, a nuke next? Is it going to be, take down more of the radar situations? What lines are we going to just keep hitting? Because it's all we're doing. And matter of fact, we'll talk a little bit more about as we move on to the other stories. It's other things that NATO or NATO members or led by the West or indirectly are doing.
It's like they're looking for the straw that broke the camel's back. They're targeting a bunch of straws and they're like going, which one is it? And then Ukraine's F-16s can strike inside of Russia. NATO ally confirms. UKR will be able to use F-16 fighter jets donated by the Netherlands to strike targets inside of Russia. Dutch Defense Minister Kaja Ollongren said as Kiev awaits the arrival of 24 of the American-made aircraft from the NATO ally. There is not a Belgian-style restriction on hitting targets within Russian borders. So they're saying, it says, we have applied the same principle that we have applied to every other delivery of capabilities, which is once we hand it over to UKR, it's theirs to use. They're basically saying like, hey, use it on your own discretion. We're just giving this to you. It's not us firing the thing. It's you. But who knows who is actually firing these advanced technologies, right? We know that there's experts there. Who's actually pushing the button? I bet you Russia or other massive countries know. Go ahead, Dex.
Yeah, and so in addition to this, you also have the stuff that Macron is doing, and Macron was jockeying with other NATO members to actually move forward with putting troops in UKR, which again is another red line. Okay, now you have him saying that he's going to announce this. And by the way, we got a date, folks. It's Thursday. It's coming out Thursday. It's a date in which he's proposed to announce that this is going to happen. And that's a big date. If you guys don't remember, that is the 80th anniversary of D-Day at Normandy. Guess who will be there? Macron, obviously. JB, Zelensky. JB as in our president. It's going to be a big deal, and he's going to announce. They're suggesting he is building this up to make the announcement there. That's a significant point in history, a significant date. So pay attention. Thursday, the 6th, coming up.
The 80th anniversary of D-Day. Like what kind of day to announce anything, let alone something related to this? And they're purposely saying, yeah, let's do it on the anniversary of Normandy D-Day. And before a final point, make sure to go over and check out Jace Medical. If you haven't already, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/Jace. This is a great service that we recommend for if you have regular medications that you need every single day. You can actually get a Jace daily plan as far as that is your regular medications, and you can get upwards of a 12-month extended supply. So you'll have a year that you will constantly can rotate into your normal supply and always have a year of extended supply of your regular, very, very important medications. That it depends on which medication. You'll have to go there to learn more. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace. You'll get a board certified doctor, full on telehealth appointment. It's very, very easy. Most people are doing is at least going over and getting a JACE case. That is antibiotics, emergency antibiotics that can be used for all sorts of things. As far as having antibiotics and not having antibiotics could be the difference between a cut on your toe to perishing. Like no joke, an infection type of thing, it could take down somebody. They literally said it took down somebody from Boeing. So a whistleblower, in fact. But something so simple can be the difference without antibiotics. So go over and check it out, marfooglenews.com/Jase, Jase, and make sure to use the code MARF. You'll not only save, but you'll help our channel at the same time. Now, going back to the main point, too, let's see here. And by the way, thank you, Sweatham. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Dan. Oh, and thank you, Trusted Source, for 11 months. It says hit like button if you can. Hey, thank you. Joe Mama, thank you for subscribing. East Tennessee Preparedness, thank you for also hitting 11 months. Appreciate that. You're almost to that year badge. Thank you. Thank you to your mods. Make sure to thank them as well. At the end of the day, with all of the talk going, and we've been on this roller coaster of ups and downs, and right now they're not telling you to panic. We're definitely not telling you to panic. You have to stay steady this whole time. You can't ride the panic bus, and you also can't ride the roller coaster down and be completely complacent when they tell you to. Right now, there are more events going on worldwide than we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Depends on how old you are. If you're 100 years old, maybe that would be a different story. But as far as in my lifetime, I should speak for myself, I've never seen this much just ludicrous events all over the world. The same playbook being used from country to country, and we're watching it all in slow-mo. And it is going to be in slow-mo, and then one day it's not going to be. So people need to have extra food, extra water, have a plan for your family, have a basic plan, have a plan if you're at work, have a plan to meet up, have a backup place to meet up if the roads are out or something like this. And this could be for World War III, SHTF, or it could be for a regional disaster. If your town floods, if your dam breaks, if you have an earthquake, if you have a tornado or a hurricane, whatever it may be, you can be prepared. Most things are survivable if you prepare and plan. Dex, go ahead.
You're spot on, Adam. There's nothing you have nothing that can go wrong with actually prepping for something. Because if you prep for something, you can be covered for a lot. But look, if you think that what's happening in Europe doesn't have any effect to you here in America, or if you think what's happening in the Pacific doesn't have any effect on you in America, that it's probably not you. When I say you, I know most everybody in our audience probably understands this, but it's the people around you, it's your family members around you that you need to talk to, that you need to help them get in the mindset of, hey, maybe they should be prepared a little better. Maybe you should think about what is it going to mean? Because when the global conflict escalates up, it is going to, when you go back to the likes of, say, WW2 or WW1, the things that happened in America were significant. I mean, right after Pearl Harbor, there was, troops running up and down the coast. They had shut down corridors in LA. There was, people don't remember this, but that's what happened. Okay, everybody got scared that was going to happen on the West Coast. There will be effects. There will be major economic effects. There will be all sorts of things that will happen and can cause us to be in a position where we're going to need to be able to take care of ourselves, whether that be financially, whether that be with food, whether that be with having a plan and people around us to work with. So yeah, whether it's a hurricane or, the escalation of a global conflict on the likes of, WW2 or WW1 in the past, yeah, all of those things can have an effect right here in America. And wake up.
One thing is, when I first started this, I really thought of my own regional kind of area. I thought about Cascadia Subduction Zone. The more that I expanded the breadth of what was happening, the more that you look at this as a global type of situation here. And once you see how everything is connected, it really puts, so Cascadia Subduction Zone is going to be massive. It's going to be the worst natural disaster we've ever seen in our lifetimes. The whole West Coast going to be wiped out when that happens. But the more that I expanded the breadth of just, the more that I learned and the more people I spoke to around the world, the more military I spoke to, I said, wow, we could be wiped out and that would be nothing compared to what is actually on the docket next. There is a brewing war right now, and history is repeating itself. People, I think, are almost in a bit of denial that all of these steps are happening in order. And it is very, very scary. But at the same time, you got to get yourself physically and spiritually prepared for whatever may come your way. That means not being afraid of it, being calm and thinking through every option and every scenario. And that's what we're here for. Every episode, we hope to bring at least one person into the fold of what's going on. So if you can share us out, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you, everybody that is watching on several platforms. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Dex, thank you.
Hey, much love. Great job. Great conversation tonight, brother.
All right, you guys, have a good night. It is a shorter show. Again, it took all of the most important stuff, and then we're also going to be doing other updates on some of the other crazier stuff going on this week, including T-Man, including, of course, AJ, and all sorts of other crazy stuff. Join us for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout-out. It's a shoutro.
Be a love song when the lights go out. Items do bother. When they go off, when they go off, when they go down. Extra food in the water. This won't be a love song when the lights go out. Items do bother. When they go off, when they go off, when they go down. Extra food in the water. This won't be a love song when the lights go out. Items do bother. When they go off.